does feel like it adds like a level of whimsy to it because it's not, just a robin or, a crow. There are a million crows here in Portland, but like something that you see all the time. It's like this kind of very mystical bird that I don't know that I've ever even seen one. So yeah, I think it added like that, a little more of that wonder to the story, which I really like. Welcome to the More Magic Book Club podcast, a podcast for fantasy readers dying to talk about the latest fantasy book you read and loved. Each month, we discuss a recent fantasy novel in detail, so you know you're not the only one who hated that character or wanted to move into that fantasy world. And you also don't have to worry about exhausting your friends who just don't get it. I'm your host, Demi Utley, an author and avid fantasy reader who also runs the More Magic newsletter over on Substack.
And I'm your co-host, Marianne Boules. I am a children's picture book author, corgi mother, and Brandon Sanderson fan, although we prefer to call ourselves Sandy Heads.
So excited to dive into our latest read with you and can't wait to hear what you thought. Since we're discussing the book in detail, there may be a few spoilers, so listen at your own risk. And now it's time for us to dive into this month's book. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the More Magic Book Club podcast. Today, we have a little bit of different magic for you because my co-host, Marianne Boules, has actually written a children's picture book. I have personally read this book many times, thanks to my one-year-old who loves it. So we want to just talk about this book a little bit and introduce it to you so you have a new book to read if you have any little ones in your life. So would you like to give a little bit of context for what your book is about?
Yes. Hi, everybody, and thanks, Demi. So as Demi mentioned, I myself, although I am a podcaster who loves to review books, I also wrote a book. This one is a children's picture book. It is called I Came Here For You. It's written by me and illustrated by my friend Mark Armanios. And it is a story about a seed who leaves his ancient homeland in search of fertile soil. So I will give the spoiler for this since this is a very spoilery type of podcast. So you know what? I'll just spoil my book, even though it is 10 pages. So this is a book about a seed who is born in an ancient place, but he wants a place to grow where his branches could stretch. And so with his father tree's blessing, he takes an albatross out of town and he lands in this new place called Beautiful Green Hill where he makes friends, but he's not quite sure if his sacrifice was worth it, of leaving his family was worth it. And so for many years, despite his fears and his worries, he continues to grow until one day a fruit blooms in his branches, and it is the most beautiful fruit he's ever seen. And that is when he realizes that his sacrifice was worth it. And it was for this fruit that had bloomed from him that couldn't have bloomed anywhere else. It had to have bloomed there. Really, if you've noticed, this is a metaphor for immigration. And really, I wrote this as a love letter for immigrant parents to read with their children. And not just immigrants in the, the global sense, but even Demi, when we were talking, she said that she felt it moving from Illinois to Oregon. So just the hardships that come with moving and building new roots. And hopefully, I'm hoping that one day I could eventually get this translated into other languages. But, I am from Los Angeles, which has a huge multicultural population. I myself have a multicultural background. And so this is just like a love letter that I wrote for my community and for my family.
Yeah, and I love it because, you just said it, but when I first read the book, it resonated with me not only from moving from the Midwest out here to the West Coast, but also even just going from my hometown then to college. I went from Southern Indiana to Chicago, and it was a very different place. And I feel like this story is just so beautiful and really shows the power of kind of believing in yourself and creating your own community, whatever that looks like, whether it's immigrating, between countries, across countries, or even maybe across your city if you're in, like somewhere like LA where that could be huge. Like just being an hour away from family can also be a big difference. So I will say, because you can't, this is a podcast, so you can't see it, but this book, the visuals are so lovely. They're so fun. I love the cover. And then there are some that just really stand out to me. The albatross image, that's one that my one-year-old always loves to look at because it's just literally the seed on the back of this giant bird. And I did want to ask you, was there any specific reason why you chose an albatross?
Demi, that is a great question. It's because it was just a stroke of inspiration from this song that I can't remember. It's a folksy song of this man just playing on his ukulele, talking to different animals and wondering about what their lives are like. And one of them was an albatross. And so that's really where I got the idea. Just a small stroke of, inspiration, but that's where it came from.
Oh, that's so cute. But I feel like it fits in perfectly with the story because it's ancient forest. And then, yeah, the seed hitches a ride on an albatross. And that feels like a very ancient type bird. I'm not like is it ornithologist?
Bird doctor.
It seems like a very old type of bird. So I thought that was just fun. And it made me want to think about like different, like just explore that with my toddler. Because we also have a book about moths and she is like obsessed with moths now. Like we were reading another book and it said moth and she was like, moth. So now it's going to be albatross. So anyway, anyone listening, your kids now will be interested in albatrosses.
And that was my plan, was like to teach them a big word. Because I know, like I said, I meant this for immigrants to read with their children. And when I first showed this to many different immigrants, they're like, why the heck would you have this word in this book? They were like, this is a big word. But I was like, you know what? It's on purpose because it's bonding, because the word albatross is with the picture. So you could use context clues, both the parents and the kids, to be like, okay, this big fat word is that big fat bird. So, it was actually on purpose for anyone who wonders.
Yeah. Well, I like it because this is a fantasy podcast. So it does feel like it adds like a level of whimsy to it because it's not, just a robin or, a crow. There are a million crows here in Portland, but like something that you see all the time. It's like this kind of very mystical bird that I don't know that I've ever even seen one. So yeah, I think it added like that little more of that wonder to the story, which I really like when I'm reading it. Like it creates like a really nice visual. So obviously,
thank you. That's exactly. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's exactly what I was going for, is I was trying to make it fantastical, fairy tale-y. So thank you.
Yeah, it does have that feel. I've read so many children's books lately. There are some different kinds, like some where it's just like words, and pictures, and some where it's very simple. And I like yours because it does have that fairy tale feel. Like when we're reading it, it's almost the same as we've been reading The Ugly Duckling lately too. She's also obsessed with that. And they're very similar in my mind. So I guess she's going into this kind of fairy tale phase where she wants more of a like this fun kind of magical story. Yeah, so I think it's really cool.
That's great. I can't wait till she's the third co-host.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit. We have to master some words first.
Yeah. Once she gets albatross, yeah, she's ready to go.
Yeah. So, well, I did want to ask you, so we talked about the albatross, but the seed metaphor is, about immigration. Was there a reason in particular why you chose ancient forest? And then they go to it's called Beautiful Green Hill is where Little Seed journeys to. Was there a reason for the seed metaphor specifically in forest and hill and trees and things like that?
Yeah, this is a great question. I love symbolism. I come from a very symbolic people. So there's a lot of symbolism in this book. So really, this book was inspired, I would say 100% by my dad. Two specific stories that happened with my dad. First was his speech at my wedding. So my dad gave this speech at my wedding that was all in English, which really shows that he was trying really hard to communicate to me and my husband, since we don't like, if you remember from the Amina El Sarafi episode, we're not very good at Arabic. We're very much a monolingual family, my husband and I. So I get excited when I understand Arabic. So that's just goes to show how poor my Arabic skills are. So my dad gave this speech in English about how we are from this very ancient tree in Egypt, where we are indigenous Egyptian, we're Coptic, so very ancient history. And my dad took this huge leap of faith by breaking off from this very ancient tree with very deep roots to go settle new roots here in the US. And he didn't know if he didn't know what would come from it, but seeing us getting married showed that we, give us 1,000 years and we'll have deep roots here too. So we are like building this new tree here in the United States that will eventually become as deep as the one that we have in Egypt. So that was the first story
Oh,
that formed this book.
that's beautiful. That gave me chills. In 1,000 years, having the deep roots like that, that's beautiful. I love that. I didn't know that was the background for the story. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think honestly, a lot of immigrants are like this. They move here because they have a dream of building their roots here. And they're taking such a huge sacrifice because they know that they're going to miss out on so much, but they're doing it for their kids and their kids' kids. And so there's something really, to me, very beautiful, very magical about that type of bravery that immigrants have that I definitely don't have. So I am a child of immigrants. I am not an immigrant. Even like when you're talking about just moving an hour away, to me, I'm moving an hour away from LA to Orange County was so devastating to me for a while. And it was just 1 hour. So imagine halfway across the world. Can't be me. Couldn't be me. So, but that was first story. And then the second thing that was really the thing that planted the conflict, the central conflict of the story was actually a couple of years later. My dad and I were at the dinner table and he told me something that shocked me, which is that for years and years and years, he wasn't sure if moving out of Egypt to America was the right thing. And that was shocking to me because my dad is the most patriotic man you will ever meet. He gets mad that I don't know what the symbol of the eagle, like apparently the American eagle holds something in each claw. I had no idea, and they each represent something. Like one is a pen, one is the Constitution. He was like, "How dare you call yourself American if you don't know what these things in his claws?" But so my dad told me that he wasn't sure, knowing that my dad is so patriotic, and so proud to be an immigrant. He's so proud in his identity. And for me to realize that he didn't know this was a worthy sacrifice shocked me. But what he said was, "I didn't know whether or not my sacrifice was worth it until you grew up, and like until I had you." And he saw like the lives that my brothers and I were able to put together that would not have been possible in Egypt, especially me as a woman. Like, forget about it. Him seeing the opportunities I was able to have, the life I was able to carve here, that's when he realized his sacrifice was worth it. And so that was when the conflict of this book was implanted in my mind. And it's it's about my dad going to America, working really hard, having struggles, but realizing that it was all worth it when his daughter was born and grew up.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. Also the metaphor of the ancient tree and then beautiful green hill. Did you choose a hill because it's Southern California?
Yes.
And like, okay.
So it's a little bit of like, because when I think of America, I think of like Little House on the Prairie, green as far as the eye can see, but that's not actually authentic to my experience as a Californian. My experience as a Californian is mountainous, mountainous mountain ranges. So I kind of combine the two. Our mountain ranges are pretty brown, except for like 2 months out of the year when it's beautiful and green. So I've kind of combined the two of like American idea of like green plains and like Little House on the Prairie and churning butter and all of that, but with my California specific experience. And then ancient forest was because obviously when I think of Egypt, I've been to Cairo 2 or 3 times. It's a very crowded place, but very old, super cool. If anyone ever has a chance to visit ancient places, there's something it's such a cool thin space between that connects the new with the old. And so that's kind of how I envisioned it. It was just like this ancient place, but also the place that's really crowded. And so that's how I came up with the idea of an ancient forest.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that because even though you based it on Egypt, for example, it connects with me with my family because they've been in the Midwest for a long time, like over 100 years, depending on, which branch you're going down, maybe even longer. And I feel like a lot of people have roots in a community, even if it's just in your lifetime. And that's where this story feels very applicable. Because even for me, like I think when I graduated college, maybe high school, the book that people would give was, Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, and which is kind of a similar thing, like, oh, you're going to go out on an adventure. Today's your day, But this book, I think would have really connected with me to read something like this, even at the point of like just going to college, because in my hometown, for me specifically, it was a lot. We knew everyone. It was a very small place. So you were with the same students from kindergarten to your senior year. And then the thought of going out somewhere else, it's like, oh, is it worth it? Like, I feel like this story, for anyone who's listening, who's like, well, I'm not an immigrant, will it still resonate? It still did for me. And as I said, my family's been here for a long time. So yeah, I really like that about this, because it's, no matter the metaphor, applies to anything. If you're doing something different, you have roots in a certain moment in your life or in your experience, and maybe it's time for you to be the seed, and you break off and you go and you do the thing. And yeah, I really like this book. But I did want to ask you, so I think it's a beautiful story, but why a children's book, picture book specifically, versus, a chapter book or even an adult book or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, I don't know about you, Demi, but I've had this experience of many times at this point where, let's say I am walking through a bookstore and this cover, there's just something about this cover out of the corner of my eye that takes me back to being a child. And you look at it and you realize it is because this is a book that you read when you were a kid. You don't remember that you read it, but just the very sight of the picture made you a child again. And then as you start to read through the pages, you start to realize that a core part of your belief system was because of that book. Fun example is The Ugly Duckling. Even like when you said that, I was a child again. Even just you mentioning the title, I was a child again, learning this really important value of what's on the inside counts. Mm-hmm. I have that as a core value system of mine because of books like The Ugly Duckling. Mm-hmm. So for me, in some ways, it's kind of sad that I figured out how much my parents sacrificed as being immigrants in my adulthood. I think if anyone is listening who is a child of immigrants, they'll definitely know the feelings of shame or embarrassment that you grow up having immigrant parents, which is kind of tragic. It's kind of a tragic thing that, like, your parents are already going through enough trying to navigate the healthcare system in a different language. Now you add on the fact that your kids don't want you to speak in front of like their friends at school, So it's like, it's luckily my parents thought it was the funniest thing ever. So thankfully my parents didn't take it seriously, but other parents, I think maybe it did hurt them on the inside and they didn't show it. But so what I wanted was to kind of compensate for that. And instead of them figuring it out over time, I wanted the kids to know from the beginning that their parents are really brave. And also like for you to understand where it is you came from and be proud of it. Be proud of where you came from rather than like ashamed or confused even. Like I said, I was confused as a 30-year-old to find out that my dad wasn't sure if he had made the right decision or not until later. So that's really why I did it, is because children's books just have a way of going into the very depth of a person's soul and planting, not to use the same metaphor, but planting its seed in there and growing over time.
Well, it is the perfect metaphor. But I like it because in the book there at the end, there's the line of the fruit that little tree grows is it's different from the fruit of ancient forest, but it's also not quite like the fruit of beautiful green hill either. It's something new and unique and different. And I really like that because, I mean, for honoring, the people who make the transition in this case, it's your parents, but if it's also you reading it personally about a journey. So like you said, if that's shaping, my 1-year-old, she now has this story that's saying, hey, you might go out and you might go somewhere, you might try something because you think like you want to do something different and you want to just create your own life in a different way. And it could be scary and you might doubt it, but in the end, you might create something beautiful that didn't exist before. That's yes. Brand new, which is, I love that. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's what it means to be human. And that is that, people sometimes say, oh, originality is dead. Everything that can happen has been done before. Yeah. I don't necessarily believe that because you are unique. And so if you do something, you're going to bring a unique flavor to it or a unique aspect to it. And like even you, Demi, just, you're like, what's that song? She's a little bit country, you yourself like are this very special mix of someone, you are like a different type of fruit from your family and from, someone who is maybe born and raised in Portland.
Yeah.
You bring a unique cultural view that I would say is valuable to your community. And I just feel like that's basic common sense for all humans is each of us bring a special cultural, unique contextual view that adds to society and can potentially make, if we're open to each other's views, it can make the world a better place.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I love that this is, like you said, in a children's book where it's, there are pictures, it's a visual children's book. So, because I think it would be very easy for something like this to feel preachy if it was longer. I don't know how many words this is, but maybe it's
like 349.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, it's longer than I thought. But yeah, so it's like not that many words and it has the pictures. So my 1-year-old's able to enjoy it by looking at the pictures and absorbing the story and experiencing this metaphor. And like, there's this quote, I think is it Lewis Carroll? There's like some quote that's if your book is too difficult for adults, write it for children. And I think that this is a great example of that, of like, it might be hard to have these conversations about themes of going out and embarking on your own journey, immigration, or even just trying something new, but writing it for kids, they're more open to the idea of wonder and possibility and hope. I just really like that with this. And that's part of why we have the podcast in general, is trying to find that again as adults and doing that through fantasy books and things like that. And your book is, it's about a seed. It's personifying a seed. So it has those elements. But yeah, I just think that children's books are a beautiful way to explore some of those topics that maybe would be too intense or scary, or even just, yeah, like I said, very preachy if it was, a full-length novel, for example, about this. It'd be a little harder to do it in a way that's as full as wonder and hope in the way that you did it.
Thank you. That is the highest praise I've ever received about this book. So thank you.
Yeah, I really like it. So
I kind of have this theory that children who really love children's picture books grow up to become adults who really love sci-fi and fantasy books.
Oh, that's an interesting theory.
And I think it's because that sense, the feeling that I get when it was a kid reading these really fantastical children's picture books, not just, Dr. Seuss is the obvious one, but I also really loved Shel Silverstein because there was just something so, he didn't give us a lot in his illustrations. And so there was almost like the sense of wonder, like you mentioned, the sense of longing, sense of yearning almost. Mm-hmm. To learn more and to be a part of, it's almost like world building. It's like proto world building for children. Even I really love, this is a bit older, but Roald Dahl. He wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He wrote his books. He would build these really interesting worlds, so much so that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory now has 3 iterations of it. 3 different movies based off of one children's book. Yeah. And so I think that children's picture books, especially, they're just such a great playground it's a great place, like we kind of mentioned before, Demi, that fantasy is a way for us to look at the world and examine the world, but from a safer place. I think children's picture books play that same exact role, but even higher stakes, because like I said, it's for children, and children are sponges. They will soak up anything you give them. And so when I wrote this book, I was very sober about that fact, that what I am saying, if the children read, they will not only digest, they will internalize. So I was like, I have to make this book very good because it could become a part of a child's psyche eventually. And I don't want to put anything in there that can hurt them, inadvertently. I want it to be something that can help them and raise them and have them be raised with a strong moral grounding and strong character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. For anyone listening with kids, like, you can trust this book has intention behind it, which I will say it doesn't. There are some books where I'm like, I don't know that was the case. But it is interesting, like, thinking when you said that they'll stay with you and they kind of transport you back if you see it when you're an adult. I was like, what books did I read? Obviously Dr. Seuss was big, but the one book that I always remember that was so because it was just so weird and random, is we had the book. It was called There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. Have you read that?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I have. I'm pretty sure I have. And I think we did a fun story. I think we did a poem. We had to do our own poems based on it.
Oh, really?
And I think mine won an award and got published in the children's like lit magazine.
Oh my gosh. What?
But my mom never saved it because she didn't realize that that was a big deal. So it's okay. I forgive you, mom, mostly. But
That's funny
yeah,
because I just remember that because it's like she swallows a fly and then she swallows a spider to eat the fly.
yes.
And then she swallows a bird to eat the spider, and then a cat to eat the bird. And like it just goes, and then eventually she swallows the whole world, maybe. I don't even remember, but I don't know what the theme is for that. Maybe don't swallow a fly. But yeah, I feel like they do have the ability, like children's books just have the ability to just explore like things for fun and add that like whimsy. And yeah, I really like your book because it does that in a way that is also fun to read as a parent. If you're like sitting down and reading it with your kid, it's just more enjoyable than some other books where it's like, okay, I've read this, a million times and it's like 15 words total and I'm bored now. So can we find a new book? Yours like has a story and there's a lot going on with the pictures too. So there's a lot to soak in for any parents who are ready to add something new to their rotation. This would be a good one. So for anyone who's listening, who's maybe interested in whether reading it to their own kid or gifting it to someone else or just checking it out and supporting you, where can they find your book?
For anyone listening, I'd be eternally grateful if you bought this. Like I said, this is my first ever children's picture book. It was 5 years in the making, Demi, I should probably say. So this is, if anyone thinks that, I've met some people so far in the industry who've all self-published, who wrote the book last week, used AI, and they think it's good to go. That was not the case for me. This book was a labor of love, 5 years in the making, 2 years of writing and editing, 1 year of taking it to storyboard editors, cutting, refining, a year of illustration, a year of publishing. It was intense. So I would be very grateful if you bought this book to support. Also, a portion of the proceeds actually go to nonprofits here in California. So I would be eternally grateful and thank you. And if you ever have any questions about the publishing process, let us know. And maybe we could do an episode on the road to independent publishing and hybrid publishing, which is what I did.
Well, thank you so much for joining today and talking to me about this book. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we're actively working to record the next one. If you'd like more inspiration in the meantime, follow More Magic and the Little Ways on Substack, which we've linked to in the show notes below. Have a book you want us to discuss? Head over to moremagicpodcast.com and tell us what book we should read next. Until next time, happy reading, and we wish you more magic.